What do an angry teenage girl and an old European guy have in common? Well, based on a true story, The Optimist bridges the generational gap by exploring themes of guilt and grief in a fresh way, begging the audience, you and me, to take heart. But is relentless optimism always good? I've seen it, so let's talk about it. I felt guilty for decades, and then I began to tell you my story. Herbert Heller says this to Abby after an emotional roller coaster of retelling his life. It is the heart of the film, showing the importance of bearing one another's burdens. The film shows how optimism can lead to hope that saves lives. Herbert Heller is the owner of a toy shop, a father, a husband, and a Holocaust survivor who never told his family or anyone of his time in the camps. One day, he finds out he's dying and decides to try and record his story. He's only able to start talking when he meets and connects with Abby, a teenage girl who is recovering from an overdose and mourning a tragedy of her own. Abby becomes the first person Heller tells his story to, and he becomes the first person she tells her story to. And in the end, their relationship with each other leads to Abby mending her relationship with her mom and Heller opening up to his family. The film's title, The Optimist, refers to Heller himself, but also to his father. It is a testament to the power of relentless optimism and hope in the face of evil, while also a warning against blind optimism. Herbert's father was optimistic to a fault, ignoring the signs of war and danger against his family and choosing to stay in Prague rather than flee to a place they could be safe. This almost blind optimism led to a failure to react in time to protect his family. This is not at all to say it was his fault his family was sent to the camps. Understand that. That is on the heads of the men who blindly followed Hitler's orders and on Hitler himself. But the same optimism kept his youngest son, our good friend Herbert Heller, alive by giving him just enough hope to hold on till the end and rally himself to escape during a death march. Later in life, however, Heller inherited this relentless optimism, pretending to be fine and dandy when inside he wasn't. It resulted in his failure to share his heaviest burden with the people he loved most until it was almost too late. Abby is the opposite of Heller. She lives in a broken family surrounded by persistent pessimism that infects her heart. When we meet her, she is mourning, and we're not sure why until she shares with Heller that she believes her best friend died because of her. This survivor's guilt is the link between Abby and Heller. They carried that burden by themselves for so long, which held them back from any sort of healing. And at the climax of the film, Heller finds Abby at the bottom, and he says, I know it feels like it's the end of the world, but it's not. I know that. I saw the end of the world. I had a ringside seat for it. Heller was right at the end, but he survived and even thrived afterwards. This wouldn't have happened if he hadn't held on just a little bit longer. He's the only person in Abby's life that can understand her guilt, and she's the only one that can understand his guilt. And this film is filled with powerful lines like that. An interesting prop in the story is Herbert's Star of David badge from his time in Prague. He kept it for over 60 years, transforming it into a symbol of pride. But the filmmakers used it as a symbol of all of the hurt that he's held onto for all of those years. And in the end of the film, he gives it away, and with it, the burden he had carried alone. The setting of the film is beautiful, rainy Northern California that contrasts the ugliness of the events our main characters went through. It's a poetic juxtaposition that perfectly encapsulates the point of the story. Dumbledore said it best in the third Harry Potter movie when he said, happiness can be found, even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light. From a technical standpoint, there's nothing remarkable about the film, but there's nothing that takes you out of the story either. The Holocaust flashback scenes were my biggest qualm, as they felt a bit too pristine, taking away from the dark reality that it was. That being said, after the first few flashback scenes, you get used to the style and are able to more fully invest in the story. There is one excellent piece of directing that stood out to me, showing the cruelty of the infamously evil Nazi doctor, Joseph Mengele. In this scene, he casually lounges on some steps in front of the prisoners while a man is hanged behind him. Mengele speaks like it's all a game to him, warning the rest not to try and escape or the same thing would happen to them. There are several other scenes of emotional poignancy, but this one really stuck in my brain despite how short it was. The Optimist overall is a film guaranteed to make you cry, whether you're empathizing with the characters in the film or you're reminded of someone in your own life that is struggling as well. Nothing technical stands out, but the story is excellent and provides an enjoyable and inspiring watch regardless. For content to consider, there is moderate language, including the S word, and derogatory language towards different people groups. For violence, there are allusions to the death that awaits the people in the concentration camps. A family chooses to jump off of their building to their deaths instead of going to the camps. Their deaths aren't seen, but there is one shot of a young boy witnessing one of the deaths, and a small bit of blood splatters across his face. One character commits suicide by taking a handful of pills and washing them down with alcohol. Another attempts to do the same, but survives. A man is hanged, but all that is shown is his feet jerking and then dangling in the background. There's nothing much for sexuality, although while the men and boys are in line for inspection by Mengele, they are naked, but no genitals are shown and only the tops of the buttocks are visible. One character sleeps around and takes a selfie with each of his conquests, and they're all fully clothed in the photos. The sleeping around isn't shown, but it can be an uncomfortable topic, of course. And other than that, topics of suicide and genocide can be pretty heavy for some viewers. For themes and worldview, this film is rich with the message of bearing each other's burdens. Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your burdens on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved." How can we practically do this? In Galatians 6:2, Paul writes, "Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." It is a command to bear the burdens of others, especially our fellow believers, and we cannot bear the burden of others if we don't share our own. It's a two-way street. By sharing our burdens with the body that God has provided for us, we are effectively casting our cares on Him, and the burden becomes lighter. There is a certain release when you confess to a sin, temptation, or struggle with a fellow believer. Keeping it secret slowly eats away at you, draining you of energy to fight temptation or remain hopeful when in the depths of despair. It hurts the secret keeper as well as the ones close to them. Speaking it aloud lightens the load and provides accountability, which is what Heller and Abby learned throughout this film. Both struggled with survivor's guilt, yet no one in their life knew they were struggling with it. Abby's mom in particular knew something was wrong but didn't know what, and it caused a rift in their relationship. Abby was slowly drowning in her grief, and her mom was watching from the shore, stuck in the sand. Heller and Abby helped each other open up and see the importance of sharing that grief and struggle with those they love. Consequently, their family surrounded them with love and comfort, able to more effectively help them heal. In the end, I would recommend The Optimist to anyone looking for a challenging yet inspirational film to watch. It's a beautiful story that champions hope and community and encouragement to push just a little bit more. I would love to hear what you thought of the movie, so jump into the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. We've got tons of other fun stuff like other movie reviews, interviews, a podcast, and we'd love to have you be a part of that. As always, stay safe out there and continue to collide with your world for Christ.